Good afternoon, everyone, or depending on where you are in the world, good evening or good morning. This is Jennifer Averill with Data Conversion Laboratory. Very happy to present to you today our webinar, Join the Evolution, a three-part seminar series for Society Publishers, Part 3, the last in our series, Innovating with Partners. We have with us today Barbara Ford of Myers Consulting Services, who has created and coordinated this series with us, and our guest, Bill Trippe from the MIT Press. A couple of house cleaning items before we get started. First of all, over the course of the webinar, please feel free to type into the questions bar you should see on your panel. If you have a question that comes up, we will be taking Q&A at the end of the webinar. You are muted, and we do not handle our question and answer via hand raise, but via the question bar. So that is the way to get in touch. Also, if you have a technical issue, if the sound goes out or anything like that, you can also type to me, and I will monitor that as I can over the course of the webinar. The webinar is being recorded. It will be available for playback at dclab.com in our archived webinar section, and we should be sending out a notice in a couple of days as to when that goes up. So I think that's everything for now, and I'm going to hand over the controls, literally and figuratively, to Barbara Ford.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Yep, you're very welcome, and I'm handing over to you now. Here we go.
My slide isn't moving forward.
Okay, do you have control of the mouse?
Yes. Let's see if that will work. Yes, nope.
Try one more time.
Hold on.
That is all right. Technical difficulties are the name of the game in webinars.
Yes. I'll tell you what, Jennifer, so we don't hold things up, why don't you take it back, and I'll tell you when to forward?
Absolutely.
Rather than trying to do anything different.
Okay.
Okay, and I need to, unfortunately, log back on. So if everyone will bear with me for just a moment. I do want to thank Jennifer again. It's been my pleasure to work with my DC colleagues, and today I'm joined by Bill Trippe, as Jennifer mentioned, and he's going to be sharing some of his insights and experiences over the last couple of decades, along with a case study on what they've been doing at MIT Press. And my GoToWebinar is slowly but surely, it's telling me another session is running and it's not letting me go on. So that's rather disconcerting.
Okay, have you logged out of the last session?
I tried to.
Okay.
So, my apologies, everyone. What should I do, Jennifer?
I think what we can do, if you wish, if you're comfortable with this, is we're on the first slide, highlights, race for relevance, and we can just work through with the script. You can let me know when to change slides, and we'll go that way.
All right, that's just fine.
Great.
Okay. I'm starting now with just a review of the highlights of our last session, so this will be a bit of a refresher for those of you who have joined us in the past, and also for those of you who are coming to us for the first time. It will put everyone on the same page. One of the better books of late that I've read concerning professional organizations is The Race for Relevance, 5 Radical Changes for Associations by Harrison Cover and Mary Byers. And so as we continue to focus on societies and primarily information activities, I've selected 3 of those 5 changes for you to consider. The first prompts us to remember that members are changing as much as their environment demands, and thus are looking at their professional societies with new expectations. They don't want to hear from us that how they want to receive information, products, services, and other benefits can't be changed because it's too difficult to do so. They aren't interested in new benefits that don't really relate to what they do or who they are. More is not always better. 1 or 2 truly better benefits are better. So we need to not just focus on the member of today, but on the member of the future. For years now, all organizations, especially nonprofits, are trying to do more and better without getting more to work with. We tend to forget that our greatest resource is staff. People are the major resources to make innovation and its subsequent implementation a reality. Costs are not just purely financial in innovative projects, but these projects must also be evaluated in terms of our staff's opportunity costs. Which project is the best way for staff to spend their time? The management principles for membership organizations discussed in our 3 seminars and the Race for Relevance are not to be relegated to the office of the executive director or the membership division or publications. The entire organization must take this awareness as the context for its move into a more evolved state by wisely applying and capitalizing on developments in technology. Thinking beyond just the publishing operation, where is your entire organization in making technology an integral part of its operations, or as we in publishing so often reference it as the transition to a digital environment? Next slide. So I'm asking you to join the evolution. As you begin to focus on the member of the future, it's important to track the evolution of the field your organization serves. This, in turn, will manifest itself in the shifts in your members' profiles and behaviors, and how the segments within your larger membership will also alter in order to accommodate those shifts. We have to realize that our past and present assumptions of members should also change. Next slide. We need to think differently. In Good to Great, Jim Collins urges us to look through a different lens. We must take what we learn from our research about how to provide valuable and useful benefits to our members and couple that with what we are learning every day about how new technologies can help us evolve into an organization which can effectively and efficiently provide those benefits. Cover and Byers extol membership organizations to adopt and exploit technology, specifically information and communication technologies, making them integral components in how they function and perform, noting that the effective association of the future will be substantially technology-based. By becoming technology-based, membership societies will be able to innovate in program areas such as governance meetings, annual conferences, trade shows, and education. In the past, members needed to physically come to the society to participate. Now, with mobile technology, the society can take its programs to the members wherever they may be. It's now difficult to ignore the fact that nearly every function can be done via technology. This seminar series is a literal case in point. Next slide. By retaining benefits of greatest value to your members, your organization should evolve to a higher level of responsiveness. You should be able to improve your effectiveness. You'll become more efficient. Members should see and appreciate an increase in the value of the benefits they receive, and therefore you should be improving your retention and getting a larger share of the audience that you've decided is your prime audience. Next slide. But it's not easy. To become a leader of change is tough. Here's a list of the things that you need to seriously consider are part or parcel of who you are as a person and who you can put together as a team. You need coworkers combining their strengths and ideas with yours in order to create an evolution. You need to sustain the motivation of your group through short-term achievements. Don't wait for major milestones. Let staff know about small victories. It will keep them inspired. And you also need to recognize that this won't occur overnight. You may not be building Rome, but you are changing your organization. Next slide. Now, there are many approaches to supporting innovation, basically as there are management books on the shelf, or shall I say, in your e-reader. Again, I've selected 3 that I think are most logical for societies to consider. The first comes from Scott Anthony, who posted "Set Your Innovation Teams on the Right Path" on the HBR blog network. To start, you need to look outside your comfort zone and identify high potential new markets. In the last decade, we focused on the BRIC countries: Brazil, Russia, India, and China. To keep up with developments in this area, I recommend that you track with the MSCI Emerging Market Index. This is an index created by the Morgan Stanley Capital International, designed to measure equity market performance in global emerging markets. Now, as of October of this year, their current emerging markets list gives us the following countries in 3 major regions. In the Americas, we have Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. In Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, they cite the Czech Republic, Egypt, Greece, Hungary, Poland, Russia, South Africa, and Turkey. And finally, in Asia, we have China, India, Indonesia, Korea, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Thailand. Tracking where most of the important developments in your discipline are happening in the world, where your authors are coming from, where your science and your scholarship is most plentiful, and where those developments will prove most useful in their applications, will help you define your top 5 high potential markets to spark your innovation projects. As we know, it's not all about creativity. There is also capital considerations and anticipated financial outcomes to define. It's important that you be fearless when engaging in innovation. Don't be afraid to take apart current products to create new ones. If you're going to lose subscribers to a journal, lose them to one of your new information titles. Don't be afraid of disruption. Every new technology shook up the world at one time or another until each found its place to serve people's needs. And finally, don't be afraid that you need a new way to distribute your new products. Change breeds change to support itself, and that is a good thing. The next slide. An approach number 2 to fostering innovation. If you aren't glancing at an issue of Inc. every now and again, please at least get the online newsletter, Inc.com. Here is an example of the types of creativity their staff provides to help spark innovative ideas in your members and your staff. Next slide. Finally, in terms of approaches to innovation, we all know the acronym KISS. I would be remiss if I didn't include it as one of the major approaches to creating a conducive, innovative environment. There is a great blog called Innovating to Win that expanded on author Matthew May's simplified approach, which suggests painting a compelling picture composed of a minimum of information when providing your first ideas, forcing your staff's brains to fill in the gaps instead of overwhelming them with detail. Innovating to Win notes every journey of innovation should include several stops along the way to ask if the current solution can be simplified. This question alone has the power to drive high-value innovations. Another good online read is GigaOM. There, Malcolm Frank recently wrote that many successful companies in the computer industry have become successful by finding ways to virtualize or separate information or process from the way it's been done before. Google is a prime example in virtualizing information from many sources. Amazon virtualizes customer service. The latest of their concepts in the news being to use drones for delivery in Los Angeles and having the U.S. Postal Service make Sunday deliveries. The last of my third approach is based on the experience of Jake Sorofman of Gartner, who suggests taking the way things are done now and flipping them around. We've already discussed this idea at several of our publishing meetings. The idea that instead of selling information per se, sell support or other services that enhance our members' and our customers' experience with the information. Develop a completely new way of publishing to be innovative. Take into account what you know of your members and customers are moving towards and lead your team to virtually see how you can meet their needs to get where the member wants to go in their research and professional development. Now remember the flip. Don't make them come to you. Push technologies have made people expect information to be at their fingertips. Next slide. As you begin developing innovative ideas and plans for new product R&D, you must be ready to kill an idea if it doesn't show promise. If you are expecting good results and don't get it, kill it. If you are learning more about your markets but not as much as you expect, those deeper insights, kill it. If your markets are indifferent to the idea, kill it. You don't want something as good as what you're doing now. You want better. Next slide. So as you continue your journey of innovation, now may be the time that you realize your organization doesn't have enough of everything to go it alone. You need a partner. Next slide. As I said earlier, staff is your most important resource if you want to be innovative. Staff knows your legacy content better than anyone else on the planet. Many of them have already spent decades creating it. But there will be only a few who would be able to be prime candidates for your innovation team. And I've listed the most important aspects for who those people might be. Next slide. So as we recognize, staff can't do it all. As we live in an ever more complex digital environment, we must realize the need for others to successfully complete our journey of innovation. But what does outsourcing provide? As you see here, we're looking at outsourcing to the kinds of partners that will complement the strengths of staff, that will expand those strengths and be able to bring about new products and new ways of channeling those products to members in a timely fashion and certainly in a financially positive effect. Next slide. Outsourcing doesn't always take place offshore. There are many companies in every country with which you can partner. However, when looking outside your country, there are a few more variables you need to consider, and they're listed here. One of the most important that I'd like to bring out is the telecommunication infrastructure. We're not talking customer service here. What we're talking about is, do they have the resources to interface with you at the times when your staff will need to interface with them. Next slide. So which vendor should you choose? You need to develop a checklist, such as the one on this slide, and be sure to explore each and every item before developing your RFP. These are all critically important. Next slide. The next step after your initial investigation for developing a solid vendors list is to look at how best to ensure a successful outsourcing experience. So I've given you a basic listing again of the things that are very important as you move into this partnership, this very special partnership of innovation. And successful outsourcing here has even more nuance and more areas for exploration than any of the RFP processes you've gone through before. So please do remember this list as you move forward. So I want to thank you for your participation. Next slide. And I will now turn things over to Jennifer and Bill. Thank you so very much for your attention.
Hi again, and thank you, Barbara. I'm going to switch over to our welcome slide for Bill. Bill Trippe is the Director of Technology at the MIT Press. He's going to speak a little bit more from a hands-on viewpoint about Barbara's points and using a case study. Bill, I'm going to hand this over to you now. Let's see if it works when I hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yeah, here we go.
So, yes, looks like it's working.
Wonderful.
So, first of all, it's great to speak to everyone today, and even in this kind of one-way direction. I recognize a few folks in the audience from past clients and colleagues. It's great to be seeing some of your names. So, a little bit of context just to my remarks. I was a consultant for a number of years and worked with a fairly long list of society publishers on the engineering, sciences, and medical side. And the great thing about being a consultant is you get to work with all these bright people and think through problems with them and make recommendations. And the other great part of it is you don't actually have to do the work. And then somehow I decided that I would take a job where now I really have to get the work done. And I have to say it's been an exciting and fun time. This very first point in front of you now, that small publishers must do everything large publishers do, really came from one of my clients. I worked with a society publisher over a long period of time, and as we worked through kind of one platform challenge after another, we recognized that all of the systems that were in place, that were being upgraded, that were being added, very much modeled what large publishers do, and they just had to do it with less money, with less staff, and with less technology infrastructure. And that's true for what we do here at MIT Press. And for this, it includes within the technology group, which you can think of as a combination of technology development, software development, IT support, and digital publishing. These are the things that that sort of come out of this group. We do a fair bit of composition within this group. I'll talk a little bit more about that. We do all of the digital publishing. We do all of the web-based product development. We're responsible for the physical parts of the channel distribution, preparing all the files and all of the metadata. We have put together a content management and asset management system for use across both our book and journal publishing groups. We have a really nice title information management system, and believe it or not, we have warehouse management. We share a warehouse with Yale University Press and Harvard University Press, and the warehouse does the lion's share of running the warehouse management system, but we have a business analyst dedicated to that as well. And then finally, we do the help desk and server administration, or at least parts of that. clearly, even though we have a good-sized and highly talented staff for an organization of our size, we can't possibly do all this ourselves. And much of these partners that you're seeing in front of you, this list was put together prior to me joining the MIT Press, but it has evolved some since I've joined. And part of my charter has been to think through exactly this question of what do we try to keep doing ourselves technically, and what do we look to partners to do. So we have really wonderful partners in print production, composition, art packaging, and everything that goes into producing the final books and journals ready for press. We have signed on recently with a partner for digital asset distribution. So we no longer provision the files and the metadata directly to partners such as Amazon, but have a software as a service platform that does it for us. We had a really fine partner in developing and launching our CMS this past year. They did the lion's share of the initial programming, and then we dedicated a programmer to that probably for about 6 months prior to leading up to launch and supporting the CMS since launch. MIT, as you can imagine, has wonderful backbone services in areas like server administration, hosting, core IT services such as SAP, email, and things like that. We rely on them for a core of those services, and we're starting to use them for more of our server and system administration. And finally, we have had a history in the recent several years of doing nearly all of our ebook production ourselves, but we finally recognized, and I'll talk more about this, that we needed a partner to produce our most complex ebooks, especially in computer science and areas like that. And you can guess who that is, but we're very happy with the work that we've been doing with DCL. And again, I'll talk more about why we decided to do that and the challenges that we had faced prior to doing that. So that's where we partner. Where we do it ourselves is in, broadly speaking, those areas where institutional knowledge is key. So title information management, we've licensed the Allbook system, which we've now been using for, I think, 7 or 8 years. We administer that ourselves. We modify that ourselves. We do a lot of upgrades with the original developer of the platform, but we have a software developer who spends a good amount of his time supporting that platform. Also our warehouse management, which again is done by the warehouse group, but we have a significant role as a business analyst in that system, which is called Bookmaster. Some of you may know. We made a decision over the last year that where we had previously had web development spread across partners, because we had made a decision to do Drupal across the board as our platform, it finally made sense to us to bring that expertise in-house. I mean, we had good, capable partners, but we recognized that because part of what you do well with Drupal is you build the core of software that you then reuse across sites, it really made sense for us to be doing that ourselves and not trying to partner with that kind of thing. And finally, we have a long history here, well before me, of doing almost all of our own ebook conversion work and a growing amount of our composition, which is probably a surprise to some folks. But this has followed on from what we think is a very successful investment in an XML workflow, especially for our book publishing. It's XML early. We don't ask the authors to do XML markup. But once the files are in-house, we apply XML tagging to them. And then we have really good automated processing all the way through both print composition and ebook composition. Clearly, this has not been an overnight process. There's been a lot of hard work. Many of the big decisions predated me. The XML early workflow has evolved over about 4 years. I've been here for about 18 months. These significant incumbent systems like Bookmaster and AllBooks have been here for well over 5 years. Things don't always go smoothly with technology. Imagine that, right? The Drupal work, again, mainly because we recognize this need to have sort of the expertise in-house. We had to transition from a process of using outside vendors to doing it ourselves. And you know, there have been some growing pains with that, but at this point we feel that we really do have the Drupal expertise, both the technology expertise and also the ability of the stakeholders to work with the developers in crafting the kinds of websites that we want to have. And I think the thing that I worry about, the early CMS project, we now have Alfresco in place. It replaced an incumbent system. The incumbent system was fine in many ways, but we could never fully realize the kinds of capability that we wanted out of that system without what we saw as really significant continued investment. And we are not dripping with cash, as most of you are also not dripping with cash. And we saw Alfresco, which is open source, as a really viable and attractive way of developing more capability in-house and building out more with the Alfresco platform over time. And finally, the thing that I fret about more than anything else is that, you know, with a relatively small staff, we have to balance a number of core, really important activities here in the press. So some of you may, carry one of the roles I do, which is to oversee the day-to-day IT responsibilities and things like server maintenance. You know, the show must go on, right? And along with that, we're trying to develop new products, and we're also trying to maintain and upgrade and curate these very important business systems. It's not an easy balancing act. And the other thing that has evolved, and I think we heard even better points about this from our wonderful first speaker, is about the how to involve the rest of the press or the rest of the society in the kind of both detailed and strategic decision-making that goes along with technology investment. We have been doing extensive needs analysis on all of these projects at the start and over time. We have steering committees for each of these key systems where both the business stakeholders and the technology experts are represented in those steering committees. And finally, and I'm not overstating this, I mean, there is continuous discussion among the senior management about the strategic direction of the technologies that we are investing in. Oops, sorry, my slides paused there. Oh, sorry. Okay, here we go. Sorry, my slide paused there for a minute. And oh, by the way, the market intercedes, right? So, and this is, I mean, it's good news and bad news, right? We all get new opportunities. We all see opportunities for new products. New formats get introduced. Kindle changes the way they're doing things. EPUB 2 yields to EPUB 3, although, as we all know, very, very slowly. All of these things mean a great deal of work. And of course, sales and marketing has to think about all of these things intensively. But on the technology side, this has a big impact on the digital product team. If we team with a new aggregator and we have to provision all of that material for that new aggregator, even with our new software as a service, it's still a lot of work for us. If we see a new product opportunity, if we want to add something to our website, if we're selling something new, then the software developers have to get involved. And significantly for us, and I'm sure this is even more true with society publishers, is that while we have a wonderful book and journal program, we see some of our biggest opportunities in new types of products. So we have a very strong scholarly collection called Cognet, which is books and journals in the cognitive sciences. This is something that is licensed to university libraries and research institution libraries. We would like to do much more of this kind of work, but we build these systems, we maintain these systems, and obviously there's a lot of work that goes along with that. Side by side with that, we are starting to work with some really great distribution partners who have significantly wider geographical reach than we do. So we have announced in the recent several months deals with IEEE and Oxford University Press. Again, very exciting. We love working with these folks, but of course there's work. And then I think this is my final point, or close to my final point. We are very interested in direct sales. We like our website. At times we do some very nice business off of our website. We do some great promotions that have worked really well for us. We see the website as a mechanism for things like bundled products, for selling print with digital, and other models that we're really just sort of still conceiving of. But it's not easy running your own website. It's not easy running your own e-commerce apparatus. It's not easy integrating those kinds of, that kind of flow with the actual warehouse management and things like that. So we know it's hard work, but at the same time we see potentially big gain in these areas. And the slides are a little slow again, but I believe that is that my last slide, Jennifer?
I believe so.
Okay, great.
Let's see, you had specific to your work with DCL?
No, that's right. I almost forgot the most important one.
I have control back, so if you just want to lead me through the slide change now, that's fine.
That's fine. Thank you very much. Yeah, something was just hesitating there. No, this has been a great story, and I'm not just saying this. I'm not getting paid for this endorsement. So you can imagine at the MIT Press, we actually publish across a wide number of disciplines, including art and architecture, but we have some wonderful core textbooks and reference books in fields such as computer science. These are long-selling cornerstone books in the field. Some of them are very well known. Some of them are really staples for advanced computer science students and practitioners in the field. But they're challenging to do as ebooks, full of mathematics. Sometimes page after page after page of complex display mathematics. These authors almost always work in LaTeX. They are not interested in working in anything else, and we're not going to make them work in anything else. So we don't see that going away. And as many of you know, if you take a beautiful PDF that produces a beautiful printed book and you put that into a program such as the Kindle Print Replica, it can be a really unsatisfactory reading experience. So, we look at our Amazon ratings sometimes, and the books get fives across the board, except that one very unhappy person who's reading the Kindle version and hates it and gives it a 1. So we have worked over a long period of time to try to create reflowable versions of these books that honor the beautiful presentation of the material in the print. And we tried. We tried it in-house. We tried it with other partners. And at each point, we felt we didn't reach success. And we stayed with the print replica style programs. But the market has finally said quite clearly that we have to do this. So we have contracted with DCL. We've produced the first of what we hope to be a, not a flood of books, but a set of our, our most important books in some of these areas. The first 3 books that are now being sold are really just beautifully done. I mean, we feel that we could not release these books without honoring the author's attention to the detail that they put into creating, the final version of the book. The authors have to be happy with the presentation of this material. And at the same time, embracing some of the nice, often simple but very effective conventions of digital publishing, being able to search, being able to, move from the text to the image, from the text to the display equation, just some of these simple navigational features. And we really do feel that we now, after a lot of challenges, finally have a solution in this regard, and we really appreciate the work that DCL has been doing for us. And I believe that is now my final slide.
That indeed is. So thank you so much to Bill Trippe and Barbara Ford. We're going to take Q&A in a couple of minutes. We have already received some questions. Just estimating this, I think we have probably additional time for maybe 2 more. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please feel free to fill that in on the question bar on your panel. While you are doing that, and I'm giving you a couple minutes to add some additional questions for Barbara and Bill, I'll just take you through our DCL slides very quickly. DCL runs years of conversion experience with cutting-edge technology and the infrastructure to make the process easy and efficient. We are, as you can probably tell from our name, a data conversion firm, and I think Bill did a very good job kind of basically explaining some of our work in publishing. We transform content at all levels, document and image conversion to ebook production to automated processing. And this is a list of some examples of our services. We serve a very broad client base, as you can see, spanning all industries. So all societies and publishing are 2 industries that we work in at a very deep level. We have lots of other areas that we specialize in as well. And here we are at the question and answer. So, Bill, as you said might happen, we have a couple of questions about in-house composition. I'm going to put them together a little bit, so my apologies to the original askers, but I think one leads off of the other kind of nicely. So the first question is, can you speak to the decision to do more in-house composition at MIT Press?
Sure. And again, this predated me, but it's actually accelerated a fair bit under me. I think it really came down to, well, let me say one broad point and then talk about the sort of business motivation behind this. I had, in my final years of consulting, seen just a little bit of an uptake in people bringing composition back in-house. And boy, was I surprised when I first saw that, because I was so used to the model of more and more composition going outside, and especially overseas. And I think the biggest reason is that the tools are better, and that the opportunity to at least try it is there. And this was after a period of time when Quark was falling apart and Adobe InDesign didn't really exist yet. The tools matured, workflows emerged, and people were able to try things, and they had some success. In our case, I think it came down to both to cost, schedule, and control. So we do feel that with the tools that we use and the XML workflow that we use, we are actually saving money when we produce certain types of books in-house. We also feel that we can get, again, certain classes of books done more quickly. And finally, we can control, especially schedule and presentation, to where, if we have a book that we want to put on a faster track, that we can get that work done more quickly. And we do feel like, now that we're a couple to 3 years into doing more and more of this, that we can point to real savings on this and faster schedules.
Now, a second question leading off of that, Bill, is can you specify some of the automated processes you are using to aid, or maybe have used to aid, in your transition to in-house composition?
Sure. So the core of it is the Xstyles tagging software from Inera. We use it to basically, once we have the Microsoft Word files in-house from the authors, we then take over the manuscript editing and proofreading is all done in Microsoft Word with Xstyles. And what we're able to get out of that at the end of the editorial cycle is valid XML that we are then able to run through a transformation. We have some XSLT scripts that we've written over time, and then we pour those we pour that XML into InDesign, and then we use some tools in InDesign to basically be able to flow the XML out at the end. So we maintain the XML structure as much as we can in InDesign, and then at the end we're able to clean it up enough to get XML out. Once the XML is out, we then produce the various ebook files from the final XML, and there's some transformations obviously there as well to create the Kindle version and the EPUB version.
Great, thank you. Bill, this question is for you, but Barbara, I would love to hear your input on this as well from a different perspective. Here's the question. What assessments did you perform, or did MIT Press perform, to determine what partnerships were essential and needed for your products? I can imagine MIT would want to keep, MIT Press, like any publisher, might want to keep as many processes in-house as possible. Do you consider these partnerships concessions? So I think this question speaks very well to the entire scope of the webinar, as well as the specific question as to considering innovating with partners.
Well, that's a wonderful question.
Mm-hmm.
If we had world enough in time, I forget what poet said that, right? If we had all the resources in the world, sure, right? Keep as much in-house. But I think, for us, I think it goes back to the point I hope I made, somewhat clearly, that some of the technology work really does require deep institutional knowledge, and some of the technology work requires deep knowledge of the conventions of publishing, right? And some of it doesn't. So, one of the first things that I pushed here, and we hope to get to a completion on this, is that we didn't want to host. I didn't want us to host our own servers anymore. I didn't want us doing server administration. I had people who were splitting time at times between trying to write software and then answering a 2 a.m. not beeper anymore, but text saying a system was down. It made perfect sense for us to, in effect, we outsource it to the extent that MIT Central Services now does that kind of thing for us. So that was a very simple solution. I think in the case of composition, I don't think we would ever do everything in-house, because some of these composition houses are just wonderful and highly skillful at doing the types of books that would probably be too hard and lengthy for us to do, and would have the opposite effect. It would take us too long, cost us more money, and we would not have the final control over the files that we would like. And finally, it speaks to precisely why we went to DCL in the case of these computer science titles. We tried mightily, right? We tried to do it ourselves, and we recognized that we simply didn't have all of the expertise and all of the tools and all of the history that an organization like DCL has in terms of, if we do 4,000 pages of computer science text per year, I have no doubt that DCL does at least 100 times that many pages. And with that scale comes lower costs, higher quality, and a million other things. So, yes, again, I love all aspects of this work. So I guess there are concessions in there, but at the same time, there really are people who do certain parts of this better than we can.
I think the most important aspect of Bill's answer is that we are looking at not everything, but we are looking at the pieces where having a partner makes very good sense. None of what we've been talking about throughout this seminar series suggests that we look at the need to outsource everything in order to be innovative. On the contrary, the lion's share of the innovative energy is going to come from the society and the publisher. But it's very important to recognize when, as Bill says, we need to have more. We have a need for more experience, or we need more detailed experience, longer experience. Those are the kinds of things that require some true strategic outlook, and I think that everyone recognizes how important it is to know when we can't do something.
Well said. Thank you so much. I think we have time for about one more question. So Barbara, this is again a kind of this relates a little bit to the last question too. You suggest in the seminar and others that it's important for societies to keep current in a large number of areas. I think it's true for publishers too, and Bill, maybe you can also speak to this. How do you propose we do that when our staff is already overworked? I think this has been addressed to some extent by what you just discussed, but you could sort of discuss it from another angle.
Well, I think the real challenge, we all know that society, staff, and everyone in publishing is definitely overworked and underpaid. To take a good look at the strengths of your individual staff people. I alluded to a number of different blogs and newsletters and other resources that I spend hours every week tracking with. That would be awfully hard for a staff person who already has some pretty important duties aligned in their job description. So I would suggest looking at the strengths and the interests innate in each individual on staff that makes sense to be a part of this innovation evolution, if I might use that term, and have them assigned to a small cluster of either blogs or newsletters or what have you, and that be their responsibility. So we're only looking at maybe an hour a day or a half hour a day. And it might even be the kind of thing that intrigues that staff person enough that they sort of take it on as a professional hobby. And that's what you really hope for.
I think that's a great. I'm going to start doing that. Actually, it's a great idea. I think that we probably do three somewhat formal things here. Again, some of which predated me, and some of which I've added. I mean, one is we do have these steering committees for our major products and our major projects, and I mean, what those serve to do is to bring all the stakeholders to the table. And I mean, the great thing is that the technologists learn more about the business needs, and the business stakeholders learn more about the sort of challenges and the challenges and the opportunities that we provide as software developers. The second thing that we do is that we invite a lot of people to the table when we're looking at new technologies. So if you are going to be affected by a new system, you are often in the mix when things are being demonstrated, when if there's a webinar related to something we might be looking at, and ultimately, a core of people have to make the decision about what we're going to use. But kind of pre-decision and during the rollout, we really do a lot to involve folks in learning about the new platforms. And then finally, and this is a very modest thing, but important for the technical team here, is that we try to make sure that everybody, each individual technologist, gets a chance to go to one significant conference or class per year. So if they're dedicated to, say, the Alfresco platform, we were just able to send that developer to a week-long Alfresco conference. If they're developed to Drupal, we send them to DrupalCon, things like that. It's not a huge deal compared to what a bigger company can do for folks like this, but within our means and within, both our budgetary means and our scheduling means, it is, I think, it's a necessary but not sufficient step toward helping with this kind of thing.
Great.
If I might add to that,
Please.
I think it's really important that staff knows they're appreciated, and by having everyone do something in the area of professional development, that goes a long way to saying thank you for all of the hard work staff does by helping them continue their own professional development, not just to do their job, but also to be good at their job.
Mm-hmm. Very true. I think we have time for one last question. So before we address that, I want to say a hearty thank you to our audience for joining us today and taking an hour out of their day. And many, many thanks to Barbara and to Bill. It has been a pleasure, Barbara, working with you on this series. And Bill, I'm so glad we got the opportunity to work together, and I hope we have it again in the future. That's my 2 cents. So our last question, I think this is great for the couple of minutes we have left, is for Bill. If you could just lead us through, maybe at the high level, the XML workflow. I think that's a good thing for people to understand who are new to it.
Sure. So maybe sort of think about the roles. The author, on the book side, I'll just talk about, because we really haven't done too much yet on the journal side. So on the book side, the authors are free to use Microsoft Word however they want to use it. And we don't ask them to do anything more than, provide us with a final manuscript ready for editing. At the time that we then launch the manuscript within our internal processes, the first person to use it or to work with it is a manuscript editor. And the manuscript editor may then take the manuscript all the way through all of the editing, or they may work with a freelancer. It's maybe 50% of both. I'm not sure of the exact ratio. But that manuscript editor has installed on his or her machine the Xstyles software, which is, I think of it as a plug-in from Microsoft Word, which through a set of menus enables the manuscript editor to apply Microsoft Word styles in such a way that the manuscript is in fact being tagged in XML continuously. And the output of that at the very end of the entire editorial cycle, we are able to export a valid XML file ready for processing. I'll simplify a couple of the specific steps that happen at this point, but in short, we are then able to take that XML file, simplify the structure a little bit, and pour that XML file right into InDesign and paginate directly from that InDesign file. So the XML tags are mapped now to InDesign styles. And it's not a black box. I mean, there's still work to do. We have in-house compositors, and when we outsource composition, someone picks up that InDesign file, does the composition of that, and produces first pages for the press, and would go through the process of first page markups back to the authors, and ultimately, and the book will stay in InDesign at this point. The markups are done, believe it or not, either in on paper or in PDFs, but the corrections then go back to the InDesign compositor. The InDesign compositor then enters those corrections, and at the end of this cycle, however many page cycles you have, the final ready, print-ready version of the InDesign file, we are then able to export the XML out of that InDesign file. So we've abandoned the original Word file turned into XML. We've abandoned the original XML file. All of the changes have been captured within InDesign, and then we export XML from InDesign. So we now have our final camera-ready pages. We now have an XML file back with all of the editorial changes done to it, And out of that XML file, we produce the various ebook versions. So I hope that makes sense, and I'd be happy to, if people want to get in touch, I'd be happy to talk more about what we actually do here.
Great. So thank you again to both of you, and thank you everybody for joining us today. The webinar will be available for replay within the next day or so keep an eye out for that at dclab.com, and I hope you all go out and make it a great day.